this character in the mind who you are thought to be, which comes with the name, comes with the story. It comes with anything that is a thought related to a personal sense of identity. That would be ego. It is a product of the mind, and whatever product of the mind, it is also imaginary. Whatever the mind sees is to see its own creation, to see its own imagination. Let's just recognize that for a second to discern the difference here, that who I am thought to be does not actually exist in reality. Meaning the character that I can imagine right now of Tiger, that character's not actually here in reality, in life. The character only exists in the imagination. And the function of this character is required for being a human being. It's unavoidable. It plays a particular function that helps us go about having this human experience. And I would even suggest that it contributes, seen in the appropriate context, to a playful experience of being a human being. In the same way of when you go and watch a movie, you see characters in the story, and the experience of going to a movie can be enjoyable. That movie could not be without characters. The experience of relating couldn't happen in the way that it does without characters. And part of the dance of characters in our human expression is it presents an opportunity for learning. It presents an opportunity for discovery. It's deeply integrated into the experience of being human. It's part of it. There's an illustration here that comes to mind if we were to investigate when does the problem arise with the ego. Directly said, it's when you mistake the ego for reality, when you think it's real, and then we try to protect and defend that which is only imaginary, thinking it's real. In the same way, if we're playing a game of Monopoly and you think the money is real, you're not fun to play with. You get serious, you get agitated, you get scared because you've mistaken the points for something that's real. And you see how innocent that is? Again, not a problem. It's just an innocent misunderstanding. But you can see how easily that can happen, where you get wrapped up in the experience and you think the game that you're playing, which exists for the sake of play, is somehow a serious thing where you could potentially lose something that's real. This experience of taking the game as something that's real and subsequently missing the opportunity of play is exactly what happens with the imaginary character that we have, where we take it to be real and then shit gets serious. Just like when you're playing a game, you can over time amass a lot of imaginary points, a lot of things that you imagine to mean something about you. And yet what it really is little pieces of paper that have no value. But in our experience with the ego, living a life repeatedly building on this story and believing more and more that it's real, the last thing we want to see is that it's not real. And this also points to the fundamental difficulty in the human experience of a lack of willingness to see the truth of things. We don't want to see the truth of things because it threatens the illusions that we're holding on to. In the same way of playing a game, you can tell a beautiful story about all these points that you have, and you don't want someone coming along and saying, hey, did you know that those points aren't real? Because at first glance, it's not inviting to have your illusions destroyed. And again, it's a way of speaking because illusions are imaginary. They can't actually be destroyed. This is wise to recognize and to see how fundamental this is, that as human beings, there's something in us that doesn't want to see the truth of things, doesn't want to acknowledge a reality where who we think we are is only imaginary. Partly because we're not in touch with the reality of what we are, and to not be in touch with the reality of what you are, and then to have the potential of seeing the ego doesn't exist can be really scary. Which of course is why there's usually a huge defensiveness, which is why the ego can become violent. In fact, we could even go so far as to say that anytime the ego starts acting crazy, it's because it's approaching the discovery of seeing its own imaginary nature, and it doesn't want to see that. The reality of what you actually are beyond this character is not concerned about the ego's disappearance, isn't scared. So part of the invitation here, always and forever as I speak, is to pull the curtain back little by little and open the eyes of your heart and see what's true about you.